Hey everyone, I'm Camila, and I want to tell you about my life. I grew up without a lot of money, but my husband Jackson had a totally different childhood. His family was rich, and he even started his own successful business. I have a good job too, but I still feel connected to my middle-class background. The only problem is my mother-in-law Addison. Dealing with Addison was like trying to navigate through a storm. But Jackson's dad, Grayson, was great. Addison, though, enjoyed putting me down and making me feel small about my family's money situation. She'd criticize us in private and even in public. Jackson always had my back, but Addison's insults never stopped. It got so bad that I thought about leaving Jackson because I didn't want to deal with his family anymore. But Jackson's love and support kept me going. He was amazing, unlike his mom. With time, I got better at handling Addison's behavior. So when she showed up with a flashy wedding dress right after we booked the venue, it didn't surprise me. She proudly showed off the dress, asking us what we thought. Isn't it amazing? It's from that fancy bridal shop you guys couldn't afford with your wedding budget, she said, not hiding her dislike. When I mentioned that her dress was too fancy for the occasion, she glared at me, clearly upset. I felt really uncomfortable then, not knowing how to handle her extravagant behavior, especially since Jackson and I were planning a simple wedding with just 60 guests to save money. We didn't want to spend too much, so I found a simple wedding dress that fit our budget. But Addison's dress was way too flashy. It was so extravagant that it would definitely steal the spotlight from me at my own wedding. It was obvious she picked it on purpose, knowing it would make a big statement. When I gently suggested she wear something else, Addison got really mad. How dare you tell me what to wear? I spent $125,000 on this dress. Do you really think I'd waste that money? I'm wearing it, no questions asked. Jackson tried to step in, saying, Mom, listen to Camila. That dress isn't right for our small wedding. Please pick something more suitable. But Addison wouldn't change her mind. No way, Jackson. I love this dress. I'm not settling for some random dress like your wife. I have my own standards. It's my big day too as the mother of the groom, she insisted, ignoring how ridiculous she sounded. Jackson, surprised, argued back, Addison, it's not your big day. Stop trying to steal all the attention. You're not wearing that dress to our wedding. The argument got intense quickly. Addison refused to give up on the dress, leading to a heated exchange between her, Jackson, and Grayson. The tension got so bad that we had to leave early without resolving the issue. Jackson was frustrated, saying, I can't believe my mom would do this. She's being unreasonable. Maybe she shouldn't even come to the wedding. But kicking Addison out of the wedding could make things worse. If we disinvite her, she might make an even bigger scene. She doesn't keep promises, and she does whatever she wants. We need to think of a smarter solution, I suggested, thinking about what might happen if we excluded her from such an important day. Jackson was frustrated too, admitting how badly his mother had treated my family and me over the years. I'm tired of her insults and disrespect. It has to stop. She can't ruin our wedding. So we agreed. We needed a plan that would keep Addison from causing trouble without making her suspicious or angry. As time passed, Addison stuck to her decision, leaving us to plan carefully to keep our wedding focused on our love, not her showing off. We all agreed that we needed a smart plan to handle the situation. So Jackson, Grayson, and I got together to figure it out. We were tired of her disruptions and all wanted to make sure she didn't take over our wedding. After talking it through, we came up with a plan and quietly started putting it into action, making sure Addison didn't catch on. We stopped talking to her about the dress and only gave her basic information about the wedding, which didn't bother her much since she was too busy trying to outshine me. Just a few days before the wedding, we were having dinner at my in-laws, and Addison couldn't contain her excitement. I can't wait for your wedding, Jackson. I've been thinking about it for so long. My dress and jewelry are all ready to shine. It's going to be such a special day, she said, clearly thrilled, though it was obvious she was most excited about showing herself off. It will be special, especially because I'll be marrying Camila. Jackson responded subtly, trying to bring the focus back to us, the real reason for the celebration. But Addison quickly made it about herself again. Sure, Camila will look nice, but next to me in my expensive dress, I doubt it. I spent a lot to make sure I stand out. Hearing this, I couldn't help but admire Addison's boldness, insisting she was better and planning to steal the spotlight from the bride on her big day. Jackson complimented Addison's dress to keep things calm. while I silently appreciated his support, squeezing his hand under the table. Grayson, always the wise and calming presence, played a crucial role in our plan. He gently teased Addison, pointing out how strange it was for her to make such big plans for a wedding that wasn't hers. "Addison, you're really going all out for a wedding that's not even yours. Shouldn't we focus on the couple getting married?" His remarks subtly reminded everyone of the real reason for the celebration, steering the conversation away from Addison's self-centered plans without causing more trouble. This clever move was an important part of our strategy to handle the situation gracefully, making sure the wedding stayed a happy occasion for us and our guests, not just a platform for Addison's ego. As the wedding drew near, Addison insisted on having only the best makeup artist for herself. "For my son's big day, I need top-notch treatment. After all, I'm the mother of the groom," she declared. She was determined not to mingle with guests she felt were beneath her, especially while wearing her expensive jewelry, fearing it might get stolen by those unfamiliar with such luxury. Grayson had a clever idea. "Why not get ready at home? It's safer and more comfortable, especially with all your plans," he suggested. Addison loved the idea of making a grand entrance and praised Grayson's thoughtfulness, unaware of our hidden agenda. Grayson exchanged a knowing look with us, showing that our plan was going smoothly. Caught up in her own excitement, Addison didn't realize she was falling into our trap. The thought of her surprise on the wedding day brought quiet satisfaction to Jackson and me. Even though I wish I could see her reaction in person, knowing the plan was in motion allowed me to focus on the joy of the upcoming wedding, feeling a sense of relief. While there was a slight worry about the plan being discovered, Jackson and our supportive friends helped ease those concerns. Everything was organized perfectly, reigniting my excitement for the special day. After months of stress, I felt genuinely thrilled about our wedding for the first time in a while. It was shaping up to be a celebration of our love, free from any outside drama. As the wedding morning arrived, bright and beautiful, it felt like the start of a new chapter we had been eagerly waiting for. The weather was perfect, adding to the joy of the day. Grayson, my amazing father-in-law, was the first to arrive at the venue, well before the rest of us. He stopped by to check on me, and despite my nerves, he'd assured me that everything was going according to plan. "Don't worry, dear," he reassured me, explaining his early arrival was due to Addison's difficult behavior. "Her makeup artist won't be here for another hour. We have plenty of time." I felt immensely grateful for Grayson's support. "Thank you so much, Grayson. I can't express how much this means to me," I told him. He smiled warmly, reminding me that I was now part of the family and assuring me that the day would unfold just as we had envisioned. His presence was a comfort, especially considering the challenge of dealing with Addison as my mother-in-law. I felt fortunate to have Grayson by my side. After checking in on me, Grayson made his way to where Jackson and I were getting ready for the ceremony. The day was shaping up to be everything I had ever dreamed of. I'll always remember the look of love on Jackson's face as I walked towards him, escorted by my uncle. Both of us were overcome with emotion, surrounded by our closest friends and family, with Grayson's supportive presence adding to the moment. As for Addison, her grand entrance didn't go as planned. Dressed in her expensive gown and covered in diamonds, she expected all eyes to be on her. But when she arrived at the venue, she was in for a surprise. It was empty. Confused and a bit panicked, she called Jackson, her voice filled with disbelief. "Jackson, what's going on? Why is nobody here?" she asked, clearly caught off guard by the turn of events. Addison frantically searched for us at the venue, puzzled by the absence of familiar faces. Jackson broke the news. She wasn't at the right place because she hadn't been invited to the real wedding. Her confusion quickly turned to disbelief, eliciting laughter and amusement from our side. Even Grayson struggled to contain his laughter, finding the situation quite amusing. As Addison pressed for answers, insisting she was speaking with Jackson and not me, her confusion grew deeper. Jackson calmly explained that although the venue she was at had been booked initially, we had chosen a different location for our ceremony. Learning that the wedding had already happened without her left Addison in disbelief, questioning why she hadn't been informed earlier. Jackson, growing impatient, pointed out that her exclusion was intentional, a decision made to prevent the disruptions her presence might cause. Despite his explanation, Addison couldn't believe that her own son would go to such lengths to keep her from his wedding. The conversation heated up as Jackson confronted her about the unnecessary drama surrounding her dress and her attempts to steal the spotlight from the bride. His firm stance surprised Addison, who struggled to come to terms with the consequences of her actions. Jackson's firm assertion that the day belonged to him and his wife, not to his mother, marked a clear end to the dispute, highlighting the significance of the occasion for the couple over any individual's desire for attention. Jackson emphasized that he would no longer tolerate Addison's disruptive behavior, making it clear that the wedding day was about him and his wife, not anyone else. After delivering this message, he ended the call. Despite Addison's continued attempts to reach him and multiple calls to Grayson, we went on to celebrate our reception surrounded by loved ones, undisturbed by the unfolding drama. During a moment alone, I noticed a call from Addison on my phone. Preparing myself, I answered, only to be met with accusations and insults. She blamed me for her exclusion from the wedding, accusing me of manipulating her son and labeling me a gold digger, envious of her potential to outshine me on my own wedding day. I calmly refuted her claims with facts, explaining that Jackson makes his own decisions based on what he believes is right, and his choice to exclude her was his own, though I did not try to influence him. Undeterred, Addison threatened to crash the reception, claiming she was already outside. I brushed off her threats with a mix of disbelief and indifference, reassuring her that she would find no support here. Returning to the reception, I braced myself for whatever scene might unfold. As expected, Addison's attempt to enter the venue quickly escalated. Dressed in her extravagant gown and denied entry by security, she epitomized frustration and entitlement, her actions bordering on the absurd. Rather than garnering sympathy, this spectacle only reaffirmed our decision to keep her away from our celebration. The guests, aware of the situation, rallied behind us, leaving no room for Addison's theatrics to disrupt our special day. Her attempt to steal the spotlight didn't end in triumph, but in a public display of her own making, starkly contrasting with the joy and unity inside. The disturbance Addison caused outside the venue quickly caught the attention of our guests, prompting everyone to witness the source of the commotion. When Jackson came across his mother causing a scene, his frustration reached its peak. He confronted her, dismayed by her refusal to respect his wishes and her insistence on blaming his wife. "Mom, what are you doing here? I clearly told you that you weren't invited. Why can't you understand that?" Jackson's patience wore thin as Addison played the victim, accusing him of being manipulated by his wife, whom she labeled as jealous. "Mom, listen to yourself. My wife isn't the problem here. It's you trying to overshadow her with that extravagant dress and jewelry. You knew she had a modest budget. Your actions were meant to belittle her," Jackson argued, hoping to make her realize the selfishness of her behavior. Addison, seeking support, turned to Grayson, hoping he would defend her actions. But Grayson, equally shocked by her behavior, stood by Jackson. "That dress isn't just any dress, Addison. It's practically a wedding gown. How can you not see how inappropriate your actions are? Look around, no one agrees with you," Grayson pointed out, his disappointment clear. Addison's attempt to justify her choice by insulting Camila's family and guests only made the situation worse. "They don't get it because they're from a different background," she argued, clinging to her misguided beliefs about maintaining her supposed class. But Grayson had had enough. "That's it, Addison. I won't let you insult my daughter-in-law and her family any longer. You've crossed the line this time," he declared, standing firm against her unfounded accusations and sense of entitlement. The conflict highlighted the sharp contrast between Addison's self-centeredness and the united front presented by Jackson, Grayson, and the supportive guests. Her attempt to crash the wedding, instead of gaining sympathy, only reinforced her isolation and confirmed the wisdom of excluding her from the ceremony. Grayson's firm defense of my family was a powerful moment for me, showing the depth of support and love I had found within Jackson's family, despite Addison's disruptive presence. This act of solidarity, affirming me as part of the family, was deeply touching, bringing me close to tears. It strengthened my belief that choosing to align my life with Jackson and his family, separate from Addison, was one of the best decisions I had ever made. Shocked and angry at Grayson's rebuke, Addison couldn't understand how her husband could speak against her, especially to defend what she saw as outsiders. She held tight to her beliefs of being superior, criticizing the wedding and our union. But Grayson's response was surprising and definitive. He expressed regret not for our wedding, but for his own with Addison, admitting their marriage was a mistake due to her unbearable behavior. Then he announced his intention to divorce her, leaving Addison speechless. Grayson wasn't alone in his decision. Jackson also cut ties with his mother, prioritizing the well-being of his wife and their future together over Addison's toxic influence. This decision showed a commitment to shield our new family from further turmoil. Addison was shocked and disbelieving. Her reliance on Grayson and Jackson for financial support had been a pillar of her extravagant lifestyle. Grayson's mention of divorce, along with the prenuptial agreements in place, meant Addison stood to lose not only her family but also the financial security she had taken for granted. Her lavish spending, highlighted by the purchase of the expensive dress, had been unsustainable on her own, relying instead on her husband's wealth. The news of impending divorce and our decision to cut ties with Addison marked a turning point for her. The consequences went beyond losing family connections to a harsh financial reality. Her once secure future, buoyed by wealth and status, now looked uncertain, with the protective clauses of prenuptial agreements leaving her with little to claim. This sudden change in circumstances served as a sobering reminder of the cost of her actions and attitudes, highlighting the transformative impact of Grayson and Jackson's decisions on our collective future. Jackson, Grayson, and I had discussed the situation thoroughly, recognizing the need to set boundaries to protect our new family. Grayson had been considering separation from Addison due to long-standing unhappiness, while Jackson and I were determined to shield our relationship from her toxic influence. Addison, taken aback by the realization that her actions had real consequences, had to face the fallout publicly. Her pleas for leniency, framed as an overreaction to a single dress incident, were met with firm rebuttals. It was evident to everyone, especially Jackson and Grayson, that her behavior went far beyond one incident. They pointed out her consistent mistreatment of me as the underlying problem, dismissing her claims of unfairness as baseless. In a last-ditch effort to gain sympathy, Addison turned to me with tears, pleading for forgiveness. She clung to me, painting herself as a remorseful victim of circumstances. Yet her plea lacked sincerity. It quickly turned sour as she resumed name-calling and accused me of tearing her family apart. Her abrupt shift from fake remorse to open hostility only reinforced our decision to distance ourselves from her. Her failure to offer a genuine apology or acknowledge the impact of her actions further alienated her, not just from me but from everyone present. The guests, initially watching quietly, grew increasingly disapproving as Addison's true colors emerged once more. This scene marked a significant moment for our family. It wasn't just about keeping Addison at arm's length. It was about reaffirming our commitment to respect, unity, and the well-being of our shared future. Addison's failed attempt to reconcile, quickly overshadowed by her return to blame and manipulation, only strengthened our determination. The way forward was evident, marked by a united stance against toxicity and a shared commitment to nurturing a supportive and loving environment free from past grievances. Jackson acted swiftly. Without allowing Addison a chance to argue, he instructed security to escort her out. Meanwhile, both sides of the family and our friends openly criticized her behavior. It was a moment of validation as we watched her being escorted away, allowing us to resume our celebration surrounded by genuine supporters. The very next day, Grayson took decisive action. He returned home only to inform Addison to leave their shared residence and had his lawyers serve her with divorce papers. Her attempts to sway Grayson with tears, screams, and threats in front of the lawyer were futile. When she attempted to approach us, seeking an ally or a way to disrupt our peace, we made a conscious choice not to engage, safeguarding our new life together from her drama. Our phones and social media became Addison-free zones, eliminating any avenue for her to reach out. As for Addison's outcome, it was swift and fair. The divorce left her in financial hardship, her attempts at manipulation proving futile. Her pleas for help went unanswered, forcing her to face the consequences of her actions alone. Eventually, she returned to her hometown, hoping to rebuild her life and reputation, seeking employment and a fresh start. These developments brought us profound relief and closure. With Addison's turbulent influence no longer present, our lives thrived. We hope she finds a path forward that keeps her away from us, allowing us to move on from this chapter without further discord.
I'm Emily and Jake, who is 2 years my senior, is a man of science, living out his childhood dream with a fulfilling research job. Despite his busy schedule, he seems content. Our 3-year-old son, Mike, shares Jake's love for observation and experimentation, currently fixated on the goldfish he snagged at the fall festival. Meanwhile, our 1-year-old daughter, Sarah, is a delightful eater with her adorable chubby white cheeks, bringing comfort and joy to our household. Life is generally good for our ordinary family, except for one recurring concern: dinner. Just as I was trying to soothe my crying daughter and finish preparing dinner, the doorbell rang. Without hesitation, my mother-in-law walked in, a frequent visitor around this time, enough for Mike to hardly glance away from the TV. "My goodness, fried food again," she exclaimed, expressing concern about its impact on Jake's stomach and the grandkids. Mike, however, loves it. My mother-in-law swiftly took charge, offering a creamy vegetable stew and minestrone, enough to last for at least 3 days. As she set the table, my spirits sank at the sight of the mostly carrot and cabbage-filled stew. Interrupting my thoughts, she insisted I pack up the food she brought. Despite its lack of appeal, wasting food was not an option. This routine, familiar since her last unexpected visit, where she swapped my clam chowder for her fried chicken, concluded with her leaving without acknowledging her grandchildren. After she left, my son softly remarked, "Grandma took my fried chicken again." My heart ached at his sad face, but I assured him there was a little meat left. As I heated up the oil, I felt relieved seeing my son's joyful reaction to the promise of more food. Yet beneath the surface, my dissatisfaction lingered. My mother-in-law's intrusion had escalated since my marriage, peaking over the last year. Each week, unannounced during dinner prep, she would criticize my cooking and parenting, leaving her cream stew behind. In the past 6 months, she started taking our food home, undermining our meals. As I juggled baby food and distracted the kids, the tough task of cooking continued. My family's happiness kept me going, but my fried chicken, braised pork, mapo tofu, and hamburgers, all of it, ended up in her hands. I inherited a love for cooking from my restaurant-running family, particularly my dad, who taught me the art. Confident in my culinary skills, I firmly believe that my cooking surpasses my mother-in-law's overly sweet cream stew. However, since Mike, our son, entered the picture, I've found it challenging to assert myself against his grandmother. When Jake, my husband, returns home after the kids have gone to sleep, he grimaces at dinner. With only Mike's share of fried chicken remaining, I serve Jake a generous portion of the cream stew, resigned to the fact that it's what my mother-in-law brings over. Frustrated by having my skills undermined, I express my discontent to Jake, urging him to tell his mother if he doesn't like it. Jake, as non-committal as ever, pokes at the stew, avoiding confrontation with his mother. Despite her intrusion during Sarah's nap time and taking away Mike's favorite foods, Jake rationalizes it by mentioning her loneliness since his father's passing 2 years ago. I sigh deeply, realizing Jake tends to avoid confrontation when his mother is involved. The only relief is that she hasn't suggested moving in yet. Tired of the routine, my mother-in-law surprises me with a different proposition during one of her dinner visits. She announces that everyone will gather at our place for Christmas this year, a departure from the usual family reunions at her brother-in-law's or her childhood home. Responding with little enthusiasm, I wonder how she plans to host the gathering. She frowns at my apparent lack of understanding and declares that I'll be helping too, assigning me tasks for the 24th. Despite my quick objections, she dismisses my concerns, suggesting I use a baby carrier for Sarah. Not only am I expected to clean up, but I'm also entrusted with preparing the full-course Christmas meal, with a strict warning against repackaging store-bought food or serving anything that tastes bad. Stunned by the audacity of her decision, I try to object, but my mother-in-law, satisfied with her directives, leaves abruptly. When I share the news with Jake that night, he is as bewildered as I am. We contemplate her plans to host a Christmas party, inviting relatives from both his dad's and her sister's families. Frustrated, I finally lose my temper, expressing my feelings of always being pushed around. Jake, realizing the severity of the situation, goes silent and, with a resigned sigh, agrees to handle the cleaning and entertaining of relatives. I'm relieved to hear Jake's proposal. It provides some direction. However, he adds a request. Can you still cook the full-course Christmas meal? Jake gazes at the meatloaf his mother-in-law left for us, making it hard to refuse. After some hesitation, I reluctantly agree. Just for this year, let's keep Mom's reputation intact. Plus, everyone in the family loves your cooking, he pleads. Fine, just for this year. Thanks, man. I can't wait for Emily's Christmas feast, he says cheerfully. I brace myself, knowing it's just for this time, and agree to prepare a full-course Christmas meal. When I inform my mother-in-law that Jake will stay over to help with cleaning, she makes a displeased face, commenting on how the man of the house shouldn't do such things. Despite her discontent, she seems reasonably satisfied seeing Jake bustling around at his parents' home for my sake. Then comes Christmas lunchtime. Emily, is the corn soup ready? I'm preparing the croutons now. I respond, scurrying around the kitchen to get the carpaccio and corn soup ready. You're so inefficient. I'll bring the food myself, she declares. I'm sorry. If you're going to complain, try preparing a meal for 20 people. It's really exhausting. Finally, the serving is done, and I sit down at the party. Jake, having put our daughter down for a nap in another room, has been supportive. Preparing a full-course Christmas meal for 20 people was challenging, but it feels good to see everyone enjoying my cooking. However, that good feeling lasts only a moment. This quiche looks so beautiful. It's like something you'd buy. Thank you. Geez, you're good at flattery. This carrot slaw is perfectly balanced with the vinegar. The orange scent really freshens up your mouth. That's because Christmas meals tend to be rich, so I made it a bit more acidic. Something's off. Every time someone tries to compliment my Christmas cooking, mother-in-law interrupts. Something is not right, she declares, revealing the source of this awkwardness. Sophia, father-in-law's sister, comments, Emily, mother-in-law, is such a great cook, isn't she? Confused, I let out a dumbfounded sound. Unperturbed, Sophia continues her story. Did Olivia make this entire Christmas feast? That's amazing. Huh? I haven't cooked a full-course Christmas meal in ages. I was going to leave it to my daughter-in-law, but she's absolutely terrible in the kitchen and never comes by, even when I offer to teach her. Mother-in-law talks about struggles she never even faced, leaving me puzzled. Oh, Emily, you should really take after Olivia while she's still well. Jake might miss the taste of home sometimes, you know. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Daniel, a relative hanging around, laughs as if mocking me. You know, Olivia, that pork belly stew you made last time was delicious. It's amazing you can cook both Western and Japanese dishes. It's not that big of a deal, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Mother-in-law smiles and feigns humility. That pork belly stew was clearly my creation. As I stand there astonished, she mouths, "Go along with it." Apparently, she's been claiming all my dishes, including the Christmas feast, as her own and sharing them with the family. Now she wants me to be complicit in her lie. No way, especially after she's been criticizing my cooking all this time. Though I want to speak out. Overwhelmed by the crowd, I find myself speechless until my young son becomes my unexpected savior. Mom, this omelet is really tasty. It looks different than usual, but your omelets are always good, echoes his high-pitched voice, silencing the noisy adults. Sophia, perhaps out of kindness, attempts to cover for my son, saying, "Oh, Mike, this is actually what your grandmother made." Astonished, my son responds, "Huh? But it's tasty, so it's got to be Mom's omelette." Grandma's omelette is super sweet and gritty. It doesn't taste good. He passionately insists, gesticulating wildly, leaving the adults exchanging puzzled glances. Panic ensues, and the mother-in-law tries to intervene, saying, "Emily, don't teach the child to lie." Excuse me? Who's the one lying here? Mom, am I a liar? Mike looks up at me, his face full of insecurity. That's when I feel my blood boil. Frustrated, I declare, Mike is not a liar. The one lying here is you, Grandma. Huh. She must not have expected me to stand up to her. My mother-in-law looks shocked as I stand up, pointing dramatically at the table. I made this entire Christmas feast, including the corn soup. Everything from start to finish. Naturally, the room erupts in response. My flustered mother-in-law begins to panic and yells, "Wait, wait, wait. Emily, you've been lying this whole time. Have you lost your mind?" "I'm not lying," I assert. Sophia, pulled into this, looks up at me surprised. "Yes, it was delicious. I made that too." You're terrible, stealing credit for Jake's mom's cooking and trying to set her up. "You're the worst daughter-in-law," I accuse. Attempting to defend herself, my mother-in-law hesitates, then shouts, "It's a secret family recipe. I can't tell you in public." The relatives, initially disgusted by our petty fight, start to see who was in the right. But my husband Jake appears near the door, restraining me with a stern voice and face. "Emily, that's enough." My mother-in-law clings to Jake, looking like a tragic heroine. Jake, addressing his mother, says, "Mom, you're the awful one here. This entire Christmas feast Emily made all day while taking care of the kids. Trying to take credit for it is pretty low." Caught in the middle again, Sophia looks at the creamy stew, recalling how sweet it was. "Yeah, it was insanely sweet, wasn't it, Mom?" Seizing the opportunity, Jake reveals, if it's sweet, it's tasty. She's always been cautious about salt and oil, but uses sugar with no limits. So all her dishes taste like a block of sugar. The truth unfolds, exposing mother-in-law's lies. Disillusioned, the family realizes that all the recent dishes were likely made by me, not her. Mother-in-law, exposed for all her lies, panics and tries to appeal to Jake's emotions. "Why are you siding with your daughter-in-law? I'm your mom," she pleads. The revelation leaves everyone in the family disillusioned with the mother-in-law. "I never wanted to say this, Mom. I thought your actions were driven by loneliness since Dad isn't here, so I've been having Emily put up with you. But what you're doing is nothing short of harassment towards her. There's no reason to protect you anymore. Don't see Emily or the kids ever again." Jake, firm in dismissing his begging mother, starts to clean up the Christmas feast. Then he apologizes to the relatives, saying, "I'm sorry for the disturbance this Christmas. Emily, Mike, let's go." As Jake takes Mike's hand and stands up, Mike glances at his grandmother and asks, "Grandma, where's your I'm sorry?" When you lie, you say, "I'm sorry," then you get forgiven, right? Isn't that right, Mom? I get it. You have to be forgiving when it comes to raising kids, but a simple sorry isn't going to cut it. Luckily, I didn't have to worry for even a second. Mother-in-law clenched her lips so tightly they looked like they'd bleed, clearly having no intention of apologizing. Seeing her, Jake sighed as if he had enough. Grandma can't even say "I'm sorry," and she's supposed to be an adult. How sad. Let's go home and have Mom's delicious Christmas feast. Okay, we left behind a growling mother-in-law and confused relatives, carrying our sleeping daughter and the Christmas feast. As we left Mike's house, we went straight to my parents' place and served the Christmas feast. Everyone was delighted and ate with joy. This is what I had been striving for, so my heart was full. Jake, of course, apologized profusely and promised never to let us meet his mother-in-law again. Apparently, the atmosphere at my house remained awkward. His relatives dispersed, leaving only a soulless mother-in-law and some bland food. The next day, mother-in-law's sister and her husband, as well as Jake's sister, visited as promised. Seeing the bland food, they chuckled and said figures. Apparently, mother-in-law's lack of cooking skills was a well-known fact among her relatives. "So, you brag about hosting a Christmas feast. I wondered what magic trick you'd pull, probably just jealous of Emily, who's good at cooking and praised by Jake and Mike." "Sorry for the inconvenience," they said after hearing the details from Jake. "My sister-in-law thanked me for my efforts, and Sophia called to apologize. I'm sorry for jumping to conclusions. It turns out Sophia also enjoys cooking, and we bonded over a recipe for braised pork belly. The misunderstanding with Jake was cleared up, and I found new friends who share my cooking hobby. I felt refreshed, enjoying a carefree Christmas. Of course, mother-in-law wasn't going to back down that easily, but I was well prepared. As I was making cornbread, my phone rang. It was mother-in-law. Excuse me, where are you? It's dinner time. Do your duty as a wife. Are you making the same mistake and coming over again? She's furious on the other end of the line. How dare you? I came here because you didn't apologize. Come home and clear the misunderstanding with our relatives. Then I'll forgive you for embarrassing me. No thanks. What? You'll be the one left out by the family. That won't be a problem. What to begin with, the one who put on airs and got shunned by the relatives was mother-in-law. I've even made plans to cook with Sophia next time. What? Mother-in-law probably never imagined that I become close to father-in-law's side of the family. So, what now? Still got any moose left? I add another blow to the stunned mother-in-law. Also, I'm not returning to that house. What? Yes, the kids and I have been staying at my parents' house since Christmas. We're planning to find a new place to live now that the holidays are over. Initially, living near Mike's family was mother-in-law's strong insistence, but Jake's workplace is actually closer to my parents' house. Didn't Jake tell you to stay away from daughter-in-law? But since mother-in-law can't listen better than a child, we've decided to physically distance ourselves. Right now, Jake is the only one living there, and he'll leave once he's ready. What? Where? Where are you? Who knows? You think you can get away with not cherishing Jake's mom? Yes, because Jake and sister-in-law have forgiven me. It's okay. Well, wait. What? Thank you for everything so far, mother-in-law. I'm so happy I'll never have to see you again. Goodbye. Wait a minute. With a bit of a laugh, I hang up on mother-in-law, who's screaming like a villain in a superhero show. Then I block her number to make sure I never have to hear her voice again. 2 years later. Mom, what's for dinner today? Hamburgers. Yay! I love Mom's burgers the most in the world. Sarah loves them too. Dad loves them the most in the universe. Dad, that's not fair. My family happily waits for my cooking in the living room, playing around as I fry the burgers in the kitchen. My heart warms up again today, watching them eagerly await my cooking, smiles on their faces. Emily. When I informed my mother-in-law that I intended to return to my hometown for childbirth, her response was unequivocal. By all means, go back. I don't want to see your face. Those words brought me immense joy, as I had eagerly awaited them. You won't have to see me anymore, rest assured. Emily. I'm Emily, on the verge of turning 28. My mother passed away from an illness when I was just 2 years old. With my father, a busy man managing a century-old clothing company, I was primarily raised by my grandmother. Living under my father's strict guidance, I followed his instructions obediently. This regimented lifestyle left no room for romantic pursuits, and I had resigned myself to the belief that it was my destiny. After completing college, I briefly worked as my father's secretary in his company. However, he found it challenging to work together and compelled me to resign. Despite my friends landing jobs, dating, and getting married, my father insisted that I didn't need to work. So, I wanted to work too. I confided in my father one night. Emily's father, Dad, can I work? No. He dismissed the idea without seeking any explanation. Emily, why not? Because you don't need to work. But I also need to step out into society and gain more experience. Emily, don't talk back. I'm not talking back. I'm not saying anything wrong. You should just stay at home, Emily. If you say that, I'll leave home. I'll leave home and go to work from there. Emily, stop it. No, I am an adult. I won't always do as you say. Distraught, I left the room, And even in the solitude of my own space, I cried for an extended period. Later, I reached out to my college friend, Lisa. Can I come to your house now? Sure, but what's wrong? And can you go out at this time? I can't right now, but I'll figure it out. Can I stay at your place for a while? Emily. Quietly, I packed my belongings and left home to seek refuge at Lisa's luxurious condominium. I discreetly left a note on my desk, explaining my temporary absence to my father. Upon arrival at Lisa's place, she welcomed me with my favorite coffee. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa? What's going on, Emily? I poured out the details of my argument with my father and my decision to leave home. Lisa, that's awful, Emily. You've had no freedom at all. Her empathetic words stirred fresh tears. Until now, I did everything my father said, thinking it was normal. But suddenly, I've started craving my own freedom. Lisa, that's completely normal. It's strange that your father doesn't allow you to work. I'd like to meet many people and have a good time too. Emily, so does your dad know you're here? I left a note saying I was going to a friend's place, but he doesn't know any of my friends. He might be frantically searching for you right now. Maybe. Lisa, it's late now. Shall we go to bed? Yeah, I'm really tired. Lisa arranged a separate room for me to sleep in. The next day, when Lisa left for work, I found about 10 missed calls from my dad on my phone. Feeling sorry for him, I sent an email to reassure him not to worry. In the evening, after Lisa finished work, she called me. I'm going out for a drink. Why did you join us? Emily. Having little experience with social drinking, I was excited about going out. When I arrived at the location Lisa mentioned, I found her waiting with 2 men. Lisa. Apologies for the wait. So, who are these gentlemen? Lisa gestured toward the shorter man and said, This is my boyfriend. And the tall guy over there is single and ready to mingle. The tall man, Max. Nice to meet you. I'm Max. Emily. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Lisa. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Emily. That marked the beginning of our relationship. Max worked at a small company in the apparel industry. Initially, I wondered if it resembled my father's company, but I swiftly dismissed the thought. Max's family dynamic was the opposite of mine, with only his mother present. However, he didn't delve into the details, and I refrained from prying. One day, Max expressed, I'd like to meet your father, Emily. While I have been corresponding with my father through email since leaving home, I had no immediate plans to return, so meeting him was not on my agenda. I'll consider it, but I'd love to meet your mom, Max. Sure, even today is fine if you want. Really? Today works. I should get a gift then. Yeah, my mom loves that kind of thing. Later, I discovered my mother-in-law not only loved such gifts, but also grew quite irritable if I failed to bring them. En route to Max's house, I picked up a cake at a bakery. Upon reaching Max's place, his mother was already waiting at the front door. Mother-in-law. When I inquired from Max why his mother was there, he mentioned sending her a message from the bakery. Emily. My mother-in-law fixed her gaze on me and asked, And your name is? Mother-in-law. Ah, I'm Emily. Nice to meet you. Mother-in-law. What do you do for a living? Emily. I'm currently unemployed, but I plan to work soon. Mother-in-law. Oh, so you're just idling about. How nice. It must be to be a rich young lady. I'm not wealthy. That's why I want to work. Mother-in-law. You don't need to talk back. What do your parents do? Emily. My mother passed away when I was young. My father works at a company. Mother-in-law. Him. Max. How long are you two going to chat out here? Let's head inside. Mother-in-law. Right. By the way, Max, did she bring anything? Surely she didn't come empty-handed. In a rush, I handed my mother-in-law the paper bag containing the cake. Emily. It's not much, but... She grabbed the bag almost forcefully from my hand, peering inside with a critical eye. I didn't really need anything, but I suppose I'll take it. In the brief minutes spent conversing with my mother-in-law, I grew to resent her deeply. I felt sorry for anyone tethered to such a person as a mother-in-law. As we entered the living room, my mother-in-law bombarded me with questions to which I offered only bland responses. Nevertheless, she persisted in her interrogation, almost as if I were a criminal suspect. Exhausted by the relentless barrage of one-sided questions, I seized the first opportunity to speak to Max. Emily. Max, I think I should be heading home soon. At that, my mother-in-law's face flushed with anger. Mother-in-law. Do you truly despise being with me that much? Your responses to my inquiries have been half-hearted all along. Max. Mom, please calm down. Mother-in-law. Max, why did you bring such a rude woman here? Surely there are better choices out there. Emily. I retorted sharply. What exactly about me is rude? If there's something I should improve, then kindly enlighten me. My response seemed to only stoke my mother-in-law's ire. Mother-in-law. You're quite cheeky, aren't you? All I asked is that you answer my questions. Emily. I've been answering everything you've asked. Mother-in-law. You dislike me, don't you? I can see it on your face. Emily. I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't bring myself to. I'm just tired and would like to go home. Mother-in-law. Well, aren't you audacious? I wonder what kind of upbringing your parents gave you. They mustn't have been good parents. I would love to see what they look like. Hearing her disparage my parents, I was overcome with sadness and began to cry. Mother-in-law. Now you're crying for sympathy. If you're so eager to leave, then go. It'll be a breath of fresh air. Also, I'll feed this cake you brought to my dog Charlie, but Charlie is quite particular, so he might not touch such a cheap cake. Laughing, she pointed at the cake I had bought. Mother-in-law. Enough, Mom. Max. Max, you really don't know how to choose a partner. Max scowled at his mother's words and retorted, Why must you always argue? Can't you act your age for once? His response seemed to drain his mother of energy instantly. Max. All I want is a good wife for you, Max. Max. I understand, but I'm an adult too, you know? I'm not a child anymore. Emily. I affirmed, and I can handle my own affairs. Upon hearing Max's words, his mother's eyes filled with tears, and she left the room with a despondent expression. I decided to depart as well, but Max followed me and offered an apology. Max. Emily, I'm sorry for my mother's harsh words. She must be feeling threatened, thinking she's losing me to you. I'll speak to her about this, okay? Please don't let it deter you from returning. Emily. His mother's comments about my parents hurt deeply, Max. I'm not sure I want to see her again. As I uttered those words, a wave of sadness washed over me, and I collapsed into Max's arms, tears streaming down my face. Max held me close, and after a while, he suggested, How about we go somewhere now? Barely nodding, I left the house with Max. Since Max didn't have a car, we took the train and disembarked at a station near the beach. We sat on a bench by the sandy shore, gazing out at the sea for a long while. 2 months passed since then, and I discovered that I was pregnant. When I broached the subject with Max, he proposed. Max, let's get married. We don't need a lavish ceremony, but let's make it official. We can reside at my house, all right? I don't earn much at my job, so renting an apartment is out of the question. I'll ensure my mother refrains from making unwarranted remarks to you, Emily. While living with his mother wasn't ideal, there seemed to be no other option. Emily. Okay, I'll do my best to get along with your mother. And so, I found myself moving into my mother-in-law's house because of our impending marriage. I returned home to inform my father about it. His face lit up upon seeing me. Emily's father. It's wonderful to see you looking well. I know we've been in touch, but it's been a while since we last met. What's the matter, Dad? I have something important to share. His demeanor shifted immediately. I recounted my encounter with Max, my pregnancy, and our intention to marry. My father listened silently. When I finished, he simply said, Well, congratulations. I'm eager to meet my grandchild. His smile seemed forced. Emily. Dad, thank you. I'm sorry for causing you sorrow as your daughter. I sat as tears flowed freely down my cheeks. My father too shed tears. I had anticipated anger, but his gentle words wounded me even more. I ended up residing with my mother-in-law due to our impending marriage. Lisa, who had been supporting me since I left home, offered her words. Lisa. You better show me your cute baby's face soon. Emily. Of course, and you should tie the knot soon too. Lisa. I'm eager to walk down the aisle, but he's dragging his feet. But I believe things will fall into place. Let's dine out together again. I initially scheduled the move for Sunday, but my mother-in-law deemed it an unlucky day, so I rescheduled it for Saturday. The relocation went smoothly on Saturday morning. While the movers were busy, my mother-in-law stood by, watching them. Despite repeated warnings from the movers to step back for safety, she remained obstinate. Once the move concluded, my mother-in-law beckoned me over and said, You didn't settle the payment, did you? Emily. I didn't catch that. Mother-in-law. She pretended not to understand and walked away, then handed something to the movers' leaders. Understanding dawned on me, but when she returned, she said, Emily dear, it seemed like you were hesitant, so I paid on your behalf. Of course, you'll reimburse me later. Mother-in-law. She then cited an exorbitant sum. It far exceeded the norm, so I questioned, You paid that much? Emily. Goodness, it was excessive. Mother-in-law. It's not about the amount, but perhaps it was a tad too generous. It's the sentiment that matters in such situations. Stinginess invites curses. I'm not being stingy. I refrained from further discussion, aware it would lead to another clash. My mother-in-law wore an expression that said, I'm always right. That's when Max intervened and asked my mother-in-law, Mom, what's going on? What'd you say to Emily? Mother-in-law. Just a trivial matter, she replied curtly before walking away. Max, are you all right? I warned her not to hassle you. Emily. Thank you. Preferring not to disclose the near altercation with my mother-in-law to Max, I fear he might mention it to her, exacerbating her hostility toward me. Following the move, my mother-in-law scarcely interacted with me, evidently avoiding me. There were weeks when she wouldn't speak to me at all, and those were peaceful days. One day, Max brought home some work documents in an envelope bearing the company name, Star Textiles Incorporated, which startled me. It was a name I'd often heard while working at my father's company. They were one of our subcontractors. Max. Yeah, why do you ask? Emily. Just curious. I realized I know very little about your company. I refrained from disclosing that his company was a subcontractor for my father's, sensing it better left unsaid. Max. Well, we're merely a small subcontractor. If our parent company decides to sever ties, we go under instantly and all employees would lose their jobs. Max chuckled with a touch of sadness. About a month later, Max began returning home late from work and seemed despondent, prompting my inquiry. Emily. You've been working late lately. Is everything all right? You seem different. He admitted, the company is in trouble. Emily. Like bankruptcy? Max. Max nodded. Our parent company suddenly slashed our orders by half. Now our boss is pleading with them daily to maintain the status quo. We're also scouting for new clients. But if neither pans out, bankruptcy is inevitable. As Max recounted the situation, I considered appealing to my father to assist Max's company. However, my father adhered strictly to business principles and wouldn't extend help based on personal sentiments. Additionally, the number of business partners seemed to have dwindled significantly. I divulged to Max that my father's company was the parent company of Star Textiles. Max was initially surprised, but then implored me earnestly. Max, Emily, please implore your father not to cut ties with us. Emily, I'm sorry, Max. My father is business-minded. Personal matters won't sway him. Max, could you try, Emily? Emily, it won't change anything. As I spoke, Max sank to his knees before me. Max, please, I beg you. Emily, stop, Max. Don't do this. I'll speak to my father, but I doubt it'll make a difference. As Max raised his head, tears of relief streaked his face. That evening, I called my father and relayed Max's desperate plea. Emily, so the company Max works for is Star Textiles. I suppose I must assist them. I was taken aback. I had anticipated my father, with his stringent business ethos, to refuse outright. Emily's father, I have 2 conditions. First, we'll maintain business with Star Textiles as usual, but I want Max to join our company. Second, you and Max will move in with me. Do you agree? Emily, so, you're suggesting Max transfers to your company? Emily's father, I'll discuss it with him, but why the need for both of you to move in with me? Emily, all right, but why reduce dealings with Star Textiles initially? Emily's father, a new company presented an enticing offer, prompting us to consider them. However, upon investigation, we discovered their history of reneging on promises, leading us to reconsider. Hence, even without my intervention, Star Textiles would have been unaffected. Emily, perhaps. My father chuckled, and I couldn't help but join in. After hanging up, I promptly conveyed my father's conditions to Max. While relieved that Star Textiles was out of danger, Max seemed apprehensive about transitioning to my father's company. Max, it's difficult for me to consider joining your father's company, Emily. I've invested a lot at Star Textiles and have good colleagues there. Emily, I'll relay your sentiments to my father. I dialed my father once more, relaying Max's concerns, to which my father responded. Emily's father, he did say that, huh? He's a reliable, honorable man. Understood. He can continue excelling at Star Textiles, but my stance on you two moving into my house remains unchanged. Emily, understood. Post-call, Max was elated upon hearing my father's decision. Max, I told Max, just remember, don't let your mother know about my father's company. If she finds out, she'll start nagging again. Max, got it. Several weeks later, I made the decision to return home for the birth of our child. Despite it being just my father and elderly grandmother at home, it felt preferable to being under the care of my mother-in-law. Waiting until my mother-in-law was sipping her afternoon tea in the living room, I approached her. Emily, mother-in-law, regarding my childbirth, I've decided to return home. It's just my dad and my lively grandmother. Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law cast me a venomous look and retorted, by all means, go back. I don't want to see your face. Unfazed, I responded calmly. Emily, you won't have to see me anymore, so rest assured. Mother-in-law, what? Emily, I mean, I won't be returning here anymore, and soon Max will be relocating to my parents' house. Mother-in-law, what nonsense. Max is too occupied with work to move. Emily, it's sorted now. Just then, Max entered and informed his mother, Mom, things are looking up at my workplace. Emily played a key role. Mother-in-law, what are you talking about? Emily's dad owns the parent company of my company. Max. At this revelation, my mother-in-law's voice rose as she fixed her gaze on me before stating, Emily, I've been terribly rude to you until now. Deeply apologetic, he bowed. Mother-in-law, I had no idea you were the daughter of the parent company's owner. May I request a favor? I'd like to reside together in your parents' house. Max. Mom, no, you should stay here. Emily, I'm not keen on living with you, mother-in-law. I'd rather not be reminded of our past encounters. Please understand. With tears in her eyes, my mother-in-law pleaded. Mother-in-law, I know it seems harsh, but I can't bear to be apart from Max. Please. Max, no, I can't agree to that. Emily, please stop. Your past conduct has led to this situation, mother-in-law. I addressed my tearful mother-in-law, who remained kneeling. Emily, You brought this upon yourself. 6 months later, Max, our newborn daughter Kay, and I paid a visit to my mother-in-law's house. However, it was eerily quiet, devoid of any human presence. Max. Calling out to his mother, Max received no response. Max, did you mention our visit? Max. No, I thought it would be a surprise. I wonder where she is. Suddenly, my mother-in-law emerged from the bathroom, looking severely frail. She remained impassive upon seeing us. The kitchen was strewn with empty instant noodle packets, and unwashed dishes littered the sink. Max. Mom, are you all right? My mother-in-law glanced at Max, but remained silent. Max. Mother-in-law, we brought your favorite cake. As I offered the cake, my mother-in-law seized it and began devouring it without a word. Echoing my earlier sentiment, I repeated, Emily, you brought this upon